You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Avid and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is another episode of From a Certain Point of View. So if you guys aren't familiar with this is a series that we've come up with to kind of celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Cantina Cast, which we are in the midst of this year in 2021. And as part of this series, we thought we would kind of give back, if you will, to the community. We want to really bring the supporters that have been with us since the very beginning, or have been some of our more avid and strongest supporters of the show, and give them an opportunity to come on the air, talk about topics they want to talk about, kind of run the show, really, at that point. And so we're excited. We've got a really special guest that we'll get to here in just one second. But joining me tonight, as always, is Mr. Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, sir. Doing well, man. New date, new time. People like this 8:30 thing. Even Mike's not in bed yet.
Really?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still not here, but I mean, he's not in bed yet.
Right. Yeah.
But this is going to be exciting, man. Josh is, Josh, I just ripped the Band-Aid off. Imperial Moonwalker, Josh is one of the folks you and I have known the longest when it comes to Cantina Cast, and been a huge supporter of the show since day one. So it's awesome to be able to have him on the show, and some of the other folks we've had, just everyone's been with us for such a long time, but
yep.
It's really cool, Josh, being out there, and he's a Texas boy just like us. I mean, you're mostly a Texas boy. So,
I mean, yeah, for the most part, I am.
For the most part. You got here as fast as you could.
I did.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
But we should just bring him on in.
Yeah, well, let's do that, because there he is. You guys know him from the Film Appraisers. He's one of the hosts there. You also know him probably from Discord as Imperial Moonwalker. Hence the shirt tonight. Pulled it out just for you, Josh.
I like it.
And hey, welcome to the show. How are you?
No, thanks for having me on. It's always great to be on the Cantina Cast, and happy 10th anniversary, Cantina Cast. That's awesome. Really happy to see that happen. Yeah,
it's been quite the ride. At least I haven't been here the full 10 years, but as long as I've been here, it feels like 10 years. So
I can imagine.
Every week.
Every week
it feels like another 10 years went by.
10 years added on. So just quickly before we begin, I kind of want to start the show. We've been starting these shows with this. Give us a little bit of your background, I guess, with Star Wars, how you got into it, that kind of thing. What sparked the interest of the flame there for you?
Yeah, like every good parent, you introduce your kids to it, right? And so that was something that my mom and my dad actually liked it. My first introduction to Star Wars was Star Wars proper when they played it on CBS. Actually, I think we talked about this at one point.
We did. Yes.
CBS aired it, and it was the same day that we got our first VCR. So the stars aligned.
Oh, wow.
And I had that videotape up until probably a few years ago. I can't find it, but that was my introduction, and it never died. It had always been strong, and it's still going.
Nice. Well, and you've picked a particular movie here, or a particular scene to talk about, and we've called the name of this episode "The Surrender of Luke Skywalker," which almost sounds like an adult novel. But I started thinking, I was like, that sounds a little
Steele.
By Danielle Steele, yeah, exactly. But for this episode, you picked the scene where Luke surrenders in Return of the Jedi. How does that? Is it? I know this seems pretty powerful to you, obviously, but in terms of like how that ranks against the all the other movies, is this one, does Return of the Jedi kind of float to the top for you? Or is it, you find it's kind of in the middle, down the bottom?
No, it's towards the top. In fact, my two favorite scenes in all of Star Wars come from Return of the Jedi. My all-time favorite is where Luke ignites the green for the first time and battle on the skiff. There's nothing beats that. This is actually my second favorite scene of all time. Huh. It's just from the emotion of it. I mean, you finally get Anakin behind the mask, like yet, and it's not Vader's hate or any of his deception or anything like that. It's truly a slice of Anakin. But I also like how we get a little bit of some like subverting expectations. The scene before this one is Luke and Leia's scene. And so it's really emotionally charged. And then as soon as that scene's over, you come to an Empire led scene, which through the whole trilogy we've been conditioned that an Empire led scene is going to be negative or have some kind of connotation, but it doesn't. So it completely subverts your expectations. And so for a couple of those reasons, this one's up at the top for me.
All right. Well, we're going to get into it now. And I've got a little, I'll pull it up so we can watch it. Hopefully we don't get hit by the, all these censors not the censors, but the algorithms from like YouTube and those guys. Here, let me get this on here. Hopefully they'll let us kind of play with this, but here's the beginning of it right now. And I know the very first thing we kind of want to talk about is just this setting, right? You've got the Death Star at the very beginning here, still under construction. I think at this point in the movie, we've already seen it before, but the fact, just the way, from the way the camera pans, right? The technical aspects of this are I thought were always really cool. You get that Lambda class shuttle landing, and we get the Walker for the first time since The Empire Strikes Back. And so just tell me, I know you want to kind of talk about this in general, but what was it? Was it just the fact that we'd seen it at Empire, now here it is in a totally different environment, or the fact that, and your background is in engineering, so I'm sure there's probably some like engineering angle here that you liked in terms of the way the construction and the thought process went into all of this. But what was it about this particular opening piece that you enjoyed the most?
Well, no, you're right. I mean, I almost said the AT-AT, but I'm not going to go there because that's not, we're not going to shake that hornet's nest. The architecture of it all, it looks really, really good. And we have not seen the Walker since Empire Strikes Back, so it was really nice to see that show up. The film nerd in me, though, I really appreciate the establishing shot here for this scene. Everything's so vertical. Like all of the elements of the scene kind of match that vertical nature. You start with the Death Star, and then you tilt down, and then you get the Lambda class shuttle descending vertically onto this real tall platform, tall trees in the foreground and the background. Of course, you've got the Walker that's there too. Just aesthetically, this whole scene, the way they set it up, is really pleasing.
Yeah. Jonesy, for you growing up, this was kind of a iconic scene for everybody because it was the first time we got Luke and Anakin, although we called him Darth Vader at the time. But what were some of your initial thoughts here seeing this? And this shot here, was this one of the ones that was added in the special edition?
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay.
Although it looks like he clipped right through the through the front of the shuttle. Actually, when I was watching it earlier today, I had Josh in the back of my head, like, how well does the scene hold up? Like in the
Film Appraisers
descending, there's really, you're right. There's like no gravity to it. It's just kind of dropping and it just lands. There's no impact or anything like that of what we would see in today's CGI. I think his head's really going right through it. But this was a pivotal moment, right? We weren't sure what Luke's plan was or what he was going to go do. And we had the tension with him and Leia, and then with Han and Leia after that, and the jealousy. But then we come into this, we started getting ready for the scene, and it was just really unlike anything. I mean, it took me a really long time for me to register that when we actually see Luke step off, that he was on that we were actually seeing the side of the Walker, right? And if you pay a close attention like we do these days, you see all of the the tiers and the ramps and stuff that they've built out. But one of the things that really spoke out to me today, of all things, is in Disney World, where they have the Star Tours ride.
Yeah,
they've got the big AT-AT, it's like facing down at you, and it's built around the Ewok village, and it really never hit me how well they captured the essence of this scene, or in this scene and the one before it with the park, like they did. They really did a good job of how they just captured all this. But no, we didn't know what the heck Luke was doing. We didn't know what the plan was. We didn't know where he was headed with this. We didn't know what was his, did he actually think he had a chance? And as we walk through the scene a little bit, I think we can debate a little bit of whether or not what his true intentions were about what some of his expectations may have been too.
Yeah. And that comes up pretty quickly here. We get Vader walking out here, and at this moment here is when they kind of bring him in. We get that famous line, "This is the rebel that surrendered to us. He was armed only with this." And it's very I don't know. That line always is. It feels like it's almost a little over dramatic, but it has to be, right? Because he's willingly given up. Not only has he surrendered, but he's willingly given up his lightsaber, which is very I think for a lot of us, it's shocking because he just got this. I mean, Josh mentioned earlier, especially during the the skiff scene, where he's finally got that and he ignites it for the first time. And then suddenly here he is. He's disarming himself, literally disarming himself, exposing himself, opening himself up to really anything. And I think that's what really catches Vader off guard, right? And it kind of sets the tone for him and allows him to be as open. I think what Josh was saying earlier about how this is the first time we see Anakin. I think literally he is Darth Vader up until this moment right here when they walk away, and it's all Anakin at that point. There's probably shades of Vader still in there, but for the most part, yeah, he's all Anakin. And let's just cut our hair. They kind of do a little walk here, and this is where Luke finally says, "I know, Father," and he acknowledges, he accepts that he is finally, he is the son of Anakin Skywalker, and to that, Anakin replies back, right, that finally admits it. But Josh, for you, the significance of father, and I guess the significance of the father in this role, in this scene, is there's a lot to talk about here, really, because at this point, we know I'm trying to think back when we first came into this movie let's go back to 1983, right? There was a lot of, we heard the line from Empire Strikes Back. A lot of folks still weren't sure what to believe. Was this true? Was this not? This was a solid confirmation, at least for us as moviegoers, that definitely he was the father. And we were having to reconcile all of this, and he didn't give us a lot of time here to do so. But the power of him being the father and then realizing everything that had come before then, and the fact that he uses the word father, I think, again, so the lightsabers was one piece, surrendering that. And then two, acknowledging him as the father. He's kind of chinking away, like chipping away at the armor, no pun intended, of Vader here. But for you, when you heard that line, when he says father, like what went through your mind? What goes through your mind even today?
I mean, it's just total acknowledgement. Once he said father, it is total acknowledgement.
Yep.
But I don't think Luke calling him father affected him that much when he delivers the line. Because if you look, Luke doesn't even look in Vader's direction. So, he's working at him, like you said, but Luke says father, but Luke stays straight ahead. He doesn't even turn his eyes. And I don't think he thought that would affect Vader at all by saying father. And you get a little reaction from it, but it's the next line when Luke calls Vader Anakin, and he looks right in his direction when he calls him Anakin, which, it's kind of a very much child-parent relationship. What's going to push your parents' buttons. And it works. It affects Vader when he calls him Anakin, because
right there,
you would expect, he gets angry. He tells him, don't go by that name anymore. So I think that's what's important of the whole father aspect, is that he's using that to chip away at him, like you said, but he knows it's not going to take the word father. That's just an acknowledgement. He works really into him. He digs under his skin when he says Anakin.
Right. And I think this is one of those moments where you get the true Anakin. He almost, when he acknowledges that when he uses the word father, it's almost gloating, so you accept, the truth. And then like you said, then he leads into this, and then you get the Anakin just pendulum swinging of, that righteous fury kind of coming back, of setting him in his place, that no, this is no meaning for me. Doesn't mean anything. Never use that again. Shake my finger at you, but with the lightsaber.
Yeah.
But it was one of those moments that I thought, like when he really said, I really thought Vader was almost gloating of sorts, even though he looked over at him and you can't really see what he's, thinking or feeling in that moment. But it was a very quick shift, and Luke, I think, very much had this planned out of how this was going to go and what he was going to say.
Yeah.
Until a little bit later, where things take a little bit different spin. I don't think he was quite expecting.
Yeah. There's, you're right. When he turns around, like, first off, Vader's got that thing pointed right at him with his hand on the button too. Look at that.
Good thing he's not a pork.
Yeah.
Right. But my goodness, that's not safe. But Luke doesn't flinch. So, I mean, I'm sure he senses that, hey, there's no intent here to kind of kill me. But he says, that name no longer means anything to me. And then we get some of some of my favorite lines from Luke ever. He says, "It is the name of your true self you've only forgotten. I know there's good in you. The Emperor hasn't driven it out from you fully. That is why you couldn't destroy me. That's why you won't bring me to your Emperor now." And I want to talk about that line specifically, about why he says he won't bring you to his emperor now, because I mean he does. He takes him to the emperor. Does he, Josh? I guess for you, did he mean just like, okay, he's not taking him right now, like he wants to have a conversation, and so therefore, because he wants to have a conversation, there is a chance that Anakin really truly is in there, and that there is that Luke believes that his father believes that there is a chance for him to kind of turn to the light side before they go to the emperor.
Yeah, I totally think so. I think it's already started with Anakin, and we're going to see in a few more instances here where Anakin's already coming to the forefront. Yeah, I don't think he had any intention of doing anything ill will to him at this point. I mean, there's always a chance, but I don't think he had that intent. Especially not try to destroy him like he talked about in the previous episode.
So do you think he was trying to bait him though with take me to your emperor because that's his intent is to face the emperor, or do you think he's really just trying to spawn an argument with him and to just bring more of the conflict out?
Luke probably knows Anakin's not super bright, right? He's not the brightest. And I think I don't think he's baiting him, but I think he knows that he's going to take him to the emperor one way or another. And he's going to get through Vader.
Right. And turning his back on him is really,
ballsy.
Really telling.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Well, it's that Skywalker confidence, right?
Oh, yeah.
Confidence.
Well, and it's funny, too, because I was going to make that comment when you guys had talked about Vader gloating. But I mean, you think about it. These guys, look at them. They're both like arrogant and bold about what they're doing, right? This is all that Skywalker blood that's coursing through them. And then Luke takes the upper hand. I completely agree when he says, calls him out as being Anakin. The other thing that I want to talk about too in this scene is if you read the original script right at this moment here, hold on, right there. The script says that he actually looks at Luke's black glove, which I don't know how that happened. And then he looks at his own black glove. And so he kind of puts two and two together that, okay, this is, hey, we're both wearing black gloves and this is my son, to which he then ignites a lightsaber. And he says, I see you've constructed your lightsaber. It says Vader ignites the lightsaber and holds it to examine its humming, brilliant blade. And he says, your skills are complete. So Luke doesn't really have much of a reaction here. I mean, he seems pretty stoic. He seems pretty confident. But I got to think there's a little bit in him that really was kind of like.
Fast forward a couple frames here. I don't think that looks.
Well,
right
there.
Yeah. That don't look too confident.
Yeah.
That was unexpected, I think.
Yeah, I think he was confident that, hey, I'm going to turn my back to him, even though he's holding a lightsaber, and he's not going to do anything. But then when it gets ignited, I mean, you can just see it there. He's looking. He's like, I don't know. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea.
Right.
Which is interesting, too, because we get, if you back up a few frames, we get an instance where after Luke tells, he points the lightsaber and says, no longer go by that name. And then the very next shot after that is really interesting because we get more feeling from Vader. So we talked, he says, no, that name no longer has any meaning to me. And then it's the next line from Luke. That's the line that I think really affects Vader. I think we as a viewer know that because the camera is going to linger on Vader's face while Luke's talking. And I mean, in filmmaking, that's a classic sign. Whoever's talking is getting to the person we're seeing. So it's shown for a reason. But that shot lingering on that line, I know there's good in you right there. That's where he says it. And the camera stays on him. So I like anyone who doesn't want to accept the truth, he changes the subject immediately. Right. And then lights up the lightsaber. Like he doesn't want to deal with those feelings that he's dealing with. And so he lights it up. And unfortunately, Luke doesn't know that thing. And he doesn't know what's going on in Anakin's head. So I can understand that fear that's coming through his eyes right there.
Right. Anakin's probably thinking, God, you're just like your mother.
Yeah. Right.
You should have seen her on Mustafar giving me a hard time.
Don't make me choke you.
So Jonesy, I'm going to put you on the spot with this one about this line about your skills are complete. And
curious, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's always been curious. And I know there's been countless ways that I think we've tried to rationalize a lot of Luke's training and, what some of these lines mean. I know there's the one, where he says, Obi-Wan once thought as you did, right? These kinds of lines that we just assume things have happened, things have been said. But him saying that, he's constructed his lightsaber and that his training's complete. and that, he says that you are as powerful as the Emperor has foreseen. So, and it almost implies that because he's constructed a lightsaber, he is, more powerful in the Force. And I don't know, I never really equated. I mean, yes, the weapon is deadly, the weapon is powerful, but it takes a certain measure of skill in order to wield it and to make it as powerful as it possibly can be. But any thoughts around there in terms of why he's kind of like jumping to the conclusions about, wow, this guy is really complete. He's done. He's gone through all of his training. He's probably at what, a level of a Jedi Knight, maybe not a master.
Right. Yeah, I think some of it is curious, and I think some of it we've had 40 extra years of other input and knowledge to water this kind of moment down. At the time, if we kind of flash back to when we really first saw this, we weren't sure what the transition was like between younger Jedi. We didn't know what Padawan was, I don't think, for a long time. From a younger Jedi to a knight to a master, we didn't know what that was. And so for this, it was very much the construction of a lightsaber seemed like that rite of passage moment, right? That was when you really became a knight, and you became kind of your own. You did something on your own, and it was a very big thing. So I think it was probably part of the kind of original thought, but I think also is that Vader's probably just feeling the power emanating from him as well. And I think some of it is also Vader probably feels a lot of the same. I mean, because they have very similar, emotions and reactions to things, and just the way they approach it is just very, for lack of a better word, kind of blood oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thinking he's probably sensing all of this, but is the training complete? We didn't know he did some backflips and some climbing some ropes. So, I mean, that was pretty cool, I guess, but it was really curious what constituted training back in these days. And I think some of it might be just a bit of reverence and you did this all on your own, and this is where you're at. And he fought him very well in Bespin, right? I mean, Vader was impressed with his ingenuity and with his resourcefulness, and just wouldn't quit, and it was like Captain America type stuff, right? Just keep getting up. And so I think it's those moments cumulatively that helps Vader come to this moment of, yeah, you really are a force to be reckoned with. And the Emperor sounds like he was probably right.
Yeah. So I want some speculation from you, Josh, if you've got it here. And again, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you know what? This is your show, so you're going on the spot. That line of the Emperor, maybe you're as powerful as the Emperor has foreseen. I've always wondered about that line too, because Vader and Palpatine spoke quite often. We know that, especially now with all the comics that have been out, they were in constant communication. I mean, we assumed it, but now we've seen it, right? We've seen it from a canon perspective. But do you ever think that they had this conversation about Luke Skywalker, and to what detail did they have? Was it Palpatine saying, hey, your son's coming back and he's going to churn you and you're going to chuck me down into a reactor? Was it very specific? Do you think it was more broadly, hey, there's, somebody that's going to be real powerful and we're going to kind of twist him as an ally for us, as he said in Empire Strikes Back? Because by the time we get to this movie, at least for me, it is. At the very end, we get a confirmation that the Emperor has always wanted Luke Skywalker and wanted him to churn and kill his father so that he could, quote, take his side, place by my side kind of thing. But to what extent do you think they had that conversation? What kind of detail do you think Vader had coming into this scene here about what the Emperor had foreseen? Was it general? Was it specific? Do you think what was kind of there for you in your head anyways?
I just don't trust that Palpatine told Vader anything. A guy in that much power. I mean, you think about in the corporate world of people who have kind of a corrupt power. They hoard information themselves. Well, a guy like Palpatine's trying to rule the galaxy, and I just don't believe he told Vader. I mean, he treats Vader like dirt. I mean, I'm very little into the new Darth Vader series, but the comic version. But
it's no different.
He's awful to him. They're the first few issues. He's awful to him. And so I have zero confidence that he let him in on it, because, I mean, if you think the whole rule of two, Vader's supposed to kill Palpatine, so that makes the Sith stronger. I just don't think Palpatine wants to die, so he's not going to tell him anything.
Right. And I think something else, maybe a different perspective on it, Josh, I'd love to hear what you think, is with the conflict that we have between Vader and Anakin right now, we really kind of treat them as two different people, I think, in this moment. Could this be Anakin's recognition that really his power lies in his ability to affect Vader and to affect and start to continually widen those cracks and spread those cracks that's allowing Anakin to come through. And that's the power that Palpatine is really most afraid of, right? Is that he can influence Vader, because we all know Vader's easily influenced in a lot of ways, right? He can easily be ruled by emotion, and he's had this void in his life without Padme for so long that now he's got Luke, and he will do anything he has to try to have this father-son relationship, whatever that actually looks like. But I'm wondering if that was Palpatine's that was his largest fear, was actually just Luke getting into his head.
Probably. I mean, as far as we know, Palpatine has already seen the splinter in Anakin. I mean, he did so in Kylo, well, through Snoke, but he did so with Kylo, right? So he may be thinking, I got to get rid of this guy and bring in, fresh blood here.
Right. And we definitely saw it, right? With the conversation between the Emperor and Vader, when he asked Lord Vader if his feelings were clear, and Vader almost in a spatting type of way, he will join us or die. Right.
Yeah. I don't know that he had. I never believed he had the conviction. I mean, he was saying it. And I'm sure he's good at faking it. I think we know that, right? But yeah, I never really believed that he was ever going to truly kill him.
Oh no, exactly. I think it was very much I'll show you. I mean, it was just that. Yeah. That again, that child telling you, so I'll do it. I'm going to do it. You can't stop me. You tell me I can't, I'm going to. And that's, of course, that's the manipulation of manipulativeness of Palpatine at play as well.
Going back to the dialogue here, there's, he takes a lightsaber, turns it off, and then he turns his back to Luke, which, okay. All right. There's something, body language says a lot here. Him feeling like, okay, then I'm, of course, Luke's got his hands bound and there's probably no threat here. But the fact that he turns around like this and he's kind of staring off and this is where we get the whole line about, Obi-Wan's thought or
once thought as you did.
Well, no, that's coming up here in just a second. No, this is where he's doing the whole thing about the Emperor being, foreseeing him, that he's really strong, that kind of thing. And he's kind of staring off. And that's what, when you see him saying these lines and he's kind of looking off, in my mind, he's picturing some kind of conversation or some vision that he might have had, or some vision, whether it was true or not, some vision that Palpatine shared with him to scare the crap out of him or manipulate him in some way. It's, again, I think you're right. It's really hard to understand or even trust anything Palpatine says. So you never know really what's true. But the way he's kind of just staring off here and talking about this stuff. And then this is where Luke kind of steps in, and you can see him. He's got a lot of determination in his mind here, at least in his face. And this is where he utters the line, "Come with me."
Yeah.
And in response to that, Vader says, "Obi-Wan once thought as you did." And I know on this show, it's been talked about a lot here, but Josh, I want to get your perspective on what was it exactly that Obi-Wan, that he's referring to here when he says Obi-Wan once thought as you did? Because I think it can be taken a couple of different ways, but what's your opinion?
I think it makes me super excited for the Kenobi series. That's what it does.
Right.
It's what it does.
Yep.
I foresee in that series, we're going to get Vader and Obi-Wan in a showdown. I don't know how much of a showdown, but kind of like Ahsoka before him, trying to be emotional with Anakin and try to bring him to the light. But I mean, it's not going to work because, we've been told, even from Filoni, we've been told the only thing that can save Anakin is the love of his son. So I think we're going to see something in the series where an instance or an encounter, and I think we'll find out a little bit more about that line.
I totally agree with you. It's kind of that, from Kenobi's or from Obi-Wan's perspective, is that second chance to try to pull Anakin back. Right. He failed on Mustafar because he was just so angry with everything going on, and quite honestly, probably very confused. I mean, he did commit a lot of genocide, murder, but so it was a really busy day for him. But I think I agree. If they're going to meet, this scene has to be part of that interaction, right? It's almost it has to be a guarantee that there's got to be something to fill this gap and help explain this. And that's been like the one thing I've been really nervous about, the Obi-Wan Vader aspect coming back into that show. But this is the one scene where I'm like, okay, that's the part. If they were to meet, it's something got to be involved with this. And I imagine it'll have a similar tone that we had with Revenge of the Sith. Although the more I think about it, we might get a very different angle from it, or the approach of Obi-Wan. And it'll be curious just how how flexible Vader is with that, or if he just completely shuts it down again and just goes on the attack. But again, also, last met I was the learner and you were the master.
Right.
So I think we're getting in for another Vader beatdown.
Yeah, I think so too. I think both of those lines are going to play heavily into what we see. So do either of you think this is going to be, I'm going to call it a reoccurring theme where it's more than one attempt, multiple attempts, or do you think it culminates in one attempt that causes Vader to say Obi-Wan once thought as you, or do you think it was a series of things? Josh, what do you think?
I think it's one. I think we're going to see one instance. Yeah,
one and done.
It's more impactful if it's just one.
Yeah.
Build all of it up and then give us the delivery, right?
Yeah. Yep. No, I agree as well. And then this is kind of what you said earlier. He kind of cuts, again, he's in control of this conversation. He cuts it off and says, hey, because Luke steps in right about, let me go forward here. He says, come with me. He starts stepping in and he kind of shuts him down, says, you don't know the power, excuse me, the dark side. I must obey my master. And he says, I will not turn or you'll be forced to kill me, which I think he's bluffing. Do you think he's bluffing here, Josh? Or do you think it was, he saw something?
It's hard to tell. I mean, it's very possible he was bluffing, but he also just wants to get to the Emperor. I mean, he's trying to get there, so it probably doesn't matter to him, honestly. Whatever he says, he knows he's going there.
All right, Jonesy, anything there for you?
I think he's, if anything, he's calling Vader's bluff, right? Or he thinks he's calling Vader's bluff. You won't take me to see your master now, and then now he's giving him the chance to go and. Well, if you're not going to take me, then you're just going to have to kill me because I'm not going to turn. Yeah, I mean, he's putting Vader on the spot to have to be the one to finish him off.
Mm-hmm.
And because he knows he won't do it. And so I think it's Luke calling Vader's bluff of all sorts here. So they're both kind of, it's a game of stalemate, right? A little bit of a game of chicken at this point. But I mean, you really see Anakin coming through because now you've got the fear of Anakin coming out with he cannot disobey his master. And we have seen what happens when he is disobeying. And this is where the comics are helpful, right? Because we have had a lot more of that context where we see the psychological damage that Palpatine is doing. We've seen the physical damage that Palpatine has done to him. Right. So it's he knows what happens when you disobey and when you push back against Sheev Palpatine. And it's I don't know. At this point, though, I think Luke is also trying to appeal to the side of a father wanting to save his son in a certain respect too, and so it's a bold move, Cotton. I think, Luke's really putting it out there and he attacks him hard, right? I feel the conflict of when you let go of your hate and has just such conviction in it. And he's so certain of what is going on and he can just feel the roiling inside of Anakin, but for whatever reason, Anakin is just not able to get there until, of course, much later when the chips are on all the chips are on the table.
Yeah, I mean this, and the way he says it right here, this is the line I'm kind of going back and forth. This is where he says, "I will not turn, and you'll be forced to kill me." And again, there's a bit of I don't know, swagger. I mean, he's very confident in the way he delivers that line.
And Vader gives it right back.
Oh yeah, he's like, "Well, fine, if that's your destiny, okay, right." I mean. Kid, punk, whatever.
Because I said so.
Right.
Because I said so. Yeah, I don't need to explain anything to you. And you touched on this just a minute ago, Jonesy, but this next part here where he gets into these lines, and I put in the notes that it was kind of a parallel to the lines in Empire Strikes Back. It's almost a role reversal where you had Vader in Empire Strikes Back telling Luke to search his feelings about him being his son, that he knows it's true. He can feel the conflict in him. And then here it is. Luke completely turning this around on him and saying, search your feelings, father. You can't do this. I feel the conflict within you. Let go of your hate. It's all mind games, right? And it's all the same stuff that his father did to him. And he's trying to use it on Vader. And his response to it is, it is too late for me, son. The Emperor will show you the true nature of the Force using your master now. But the way he delivers that line, that it is too late for me, son, it's very sincere.
Yeah,
it is.
And I've always loved the way he delivers that line because he turns around like 3 seconds later and is back to being a jerk again. But that's probably been the most disarming we've seen, or the most open we've seen him. Even if you think about like stuff that was happening in Clone Wars and we didn't have a whole lot we've got some moments in the Vader comic, especially when we're in the mind of Anakin Skywalker, we see moments like this. But on screen, I think this is outside of the very ending of this movie, that only the real time that we've ever actually seen that. So Josh, for you, I guess, I guess your thoughts on that's, Luke pitching this to him the way it was given to him in Empire Strikes Back, and then Vader's response on, being too late for him and acknowledging him as his son. I mean, again, it starts with father, ends with son, but your thoughts there.
Well, whoever picked up on the symmetry between those two scenes, bravo, because I had never thought about it in that way, but it is. I mean, the symmetry between those two scenes is wonderful. There's a lot of lines between both. Some of them in a slightly different way they're said, but the same idea. Don't make me destroy you by Vader on Cloud City, and then that's why you can't destroy me, or that's why you couldn't destroy me by Luke on Endor. And then if you only knew the power of the dark side by Vader, and then he says, hey, you don't know the power of the dark side. It's just there's so much happening in both of those scenes. It's really nice. And then what you talked about, the search your feelings, you know it to be true. It's like father and son on Cloud City, and then father and son on Endor, and Vader trying to convince Luke to join him, and then Luke trying to convince Vader to come join him. It's really well put together, and I had not thought about it like that before until I watched each one consecutively, and it's good point there. But that
we should throw that up there somehow. We'll do that. And all the free time that we've got, Jonesy, we'll put that together on a video somewhere. But
I think the other thing interesting is when you look at their conflict in Cloud City, it's very much like a father and their teenage son. But when we come to this, now this is the young man, right, who is striking out on his own, probably still early, right, maybe in his early 20s, but he's starting to figure out what it means to challenge your parent, but in a more productive way, and to challenge their ways and what they're doing. And that it's really telling that Vader gives up of sorts, or maybe it's Anakin giving up. And it really struck a chord with me because I was thinking about Master and Apprentice, the book, right, from Claudia Gray. And the line in there from Qui-Gon Jinn was, you have to choose the light because it's the light.
Right.
You always have a choice. Yeah, every day you have a choice, but you have to choose. And we're going to talk about that tonight too with Bad Batch, because the same themes come up, right? And it's just one of those things. Again, I don't know that he's actually making a choice. He seems like he is deferring the choice because it's already made. So why would I go back and do anything different than what I've already done? So, and again, just it's that fear, just that outright fear of Palpatine. Yeah. It's just almost palpable here. No pun intended.
Yeah. And that line, it's too late for me, son. I mean, kudos to James Earl Jones for the way he delivered that. Perfect. I mean, it's like the line kind of starts here and it just gets like lower and just more heartfelt as he goes on. And even David Prowse, I mean, it's hard to act when your body. I think we've probably talked about it in Discord too, how Pedro Pascal in The Mandalorian, the way he kind of moves certain ways, there's a lot of body language. And you get that here in this scene. That's the first real emotional scene. But that line, it does get me every time because it's just sincere. I mean, you can just tell that he knows that I'm gone. Like there's no way you can possibly save me because of all the things I've been through. It's just, but
yet here is this. Yeah. And yet here it is, of all people, it's his own blood, his son, someone he thought was dead, living through the emotions of that for so long. And you get a sense that he is, it's sincere, but it's also very like telling in terms of where Anakin is at this point. Like he is so beaten down.
He's a beaten dog.
He is. I mean, he's literally just a horribly beaten dog at this point, and never once thought that this whole opportunity here would even come up again, that anybody would ever see anything in him ever again, period. And, full stop. And then you've got Luke Skywalker coming in, saying all these things to him, and then drops like the worst like guilt trip on him ever, with the very last line, and it sits with him too. I mean, we see it. I mean, he says, he is your master now, speaking to Palpatine. I think I've got it in here. He turns and calls the stormtroopers in. These jackwads come in here and take him away, and that's when he says that he looks him straight in the eye, helmet. And says that my father is truly dead. And I can't tell you how many times as a parent, kids unfortunately say some really horrible things to you that they don't mean, but man, they sit with you.
Yeah.
And they do with me, and they hit hard. And like you said, Jonesy, me as a teenage kid was just spitting vile. As I got older, I knew what buttons to push, and I knew what to say, and I knew what would get under the skin of my parents. And I think we all do that, right? We all probably go through that at some point, like it or hate it, love it or hate it, whatever. It's just part of growing up and development. But yeah, I mean, this really hits hard with him, because he just kind of walks off. Vader has no retort. It just sits there, takes it, and then walks off. You can see him, and he's just sulking at this point. Right? Considering really life choices, going through everything that's happened in the last 30, 20 years, whatever. But yeah, I mean, Josh, for you on this line of, I know you got kids. Have they dropped the mega bombs on you like that to pull at your heartstrings?
Lightsaber on me. Yeah, it's, yeah, they have. But I think I still kind of feel like everything Luke's doing here is intentional. Maybe there's some emotion in there where he's just reacting and saying things because his feelings are hurt. But I still think all of it's just Luke being intentional here. He's saying what he needs to say to get Anakin out of there. I mean, and it works. That's why we linger on Vader staring off into the woods of Endor. It works. After that, you're right. I think you said at the beginning of the show that he's Vader after that, or he's Anakin after that from here on out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think this really sets up, especially in the throne room, when Palpatine is using the Force lightning on Luke, and Luke is just wrathing, in just complete agony, and he's pleading, Father, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and these are the moments, and this last couple in particular, the ones that really set that up to be exceptionally powerful, and for that finally to give him that thing, like I do have a choice now, and he can make one last decision to help save. And that's also why I've said Vader's really selfish, because Vader didn't do this for the good of the galaxy or anything else. He just wanted his boy to like him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because he has so much shame. I mean, he's been beaten up, but he's got a lot of shame too, and you can hear that in the voice. And I'm glad you brought up James Earl Jones, Josh, because man, absolutely, just the way that it slight. Like, I was a musician major, so anytime you have a nice retarding type of phrase, right, that just slows just a little bit, and the way that just a little bit of a break. Yeah. I mean, little subtle things with voice acting and with stage actors in particular are able to really deliver that, and it's so powerful to do it. And you're right, David Prowse. I mean, the body language alone, just that you can see a bit of a hunch, right, and just he goes over and takes Luke's spot. I mean, so there's other things you can draw from some of these things. Now he's looking at it from Luke's perspective, whatever. But it's really cool though that all of these really set everything up later on. I mean, that's expected, of course, but it surprises me how well it was really done for really just how long is the scene? Like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, something like that.
It's like 3 minutes total, but some of that it's probably about a minute and 45, 2 minutes of dialogue at most.
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, some of the best written dialogue, I think, in the movie, and definitely the best delivered in the movie.
Yep. Yeah. And we won't get to talk about it here, but you couple this with the scene under the stairs and that whole situation that's going on there. I still feel like that is Anakin and Luke at that point, even if, he's kind of doing it because he has to, right? I mean, the Emperor's there, he doesn't really have a choice. He's got to kind of go through all of that. But, when he leaves his son, when he leaves the scene, when the scene's over, they are father and son. I think they both know it in their hearts. And like you said earlier, it kind of leads to, obviously him turning and fulfilling the prophecy and all of that. But yeah, I mean, kudos to Luke for doing what no one was able to do over the course of ever how many years. He does it within 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I do think he had a plan too. I mean, I think that line of, then my father is truly dead, I think he went in with that and said, okay, I'm going to put this in my back pocket, and if I really need to play this, I will. I don't think he ever thought Vader would definitely churn here. I think in my own head, I think Luke already had some kind of a vision, knew that he was going to face the Emperor and all that was going to happen, didn't know where it was going to go at that point. But this was the first thing he had to do in order to have any chance, because I don't think he felt like he personally could have taken him on his own. Again, this is all headcanon in my head, so don't start jumping down my throat. But I think he felt like I needed my dad. I'm going to have, we're going to have to do this kind of together kind of thing. So
speaking of dad thing, Josh, I've got kind of a bonus one for you here.
Okay.
So when they go to the throne room, right, and Vader hands over Luke's lightsaber to the Emperor, and Palpatine's like, "Oh yes, the weapon of a Jedi or whatever, much like your father's." Now, do you think that was a dig at Vader because Luke's lightsaber is effectively a carbon copy of Obi-Wan's?
Yeah.
To where Obi-Wan was really the father, and he's just jabbing at Vader one more time. Do you think that was that intentional, or did you take a different meaning from it? So I remember watching it for the first time, and I was so confused at what he was talking about. I was like, it doesn't look anything like his father.
Yeah, I never put that together. Never thought about that line being used like that, but that would not surprise me. I mean, any chance Palpatine can get to beat down on Vader, he's going to take it. He's going to take it.
Right.
So
in front of his son, no less.
Even more embarrassing.
That's brutal.
Showing him up. Well, that's it. I mean, that's the whole scene. 3 minutes. We turned into a 45-minute show, so well done there, gentlemen. But
Cantina cast fashion.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is, again, I really feel like this is it's a scene that we've been waiting for, right? The whole series for the most part. And it still sticks with you even to this day because of so many different things, whether it was the beginning of the end, the fulfilling of the prophecy, seeing them reunited for the first time since Empire, seeing them acknowledge the relationship between father and son, of course, with Leia now involved. And I mean, it all kind of just culminates up into then. And it is kind of sad in some regards for me. Like, it does end everything with the Skywalker saga, at least with Luke up until this point, but there's really not a whole lot that we get in the sequel trilogy or any kind of reference to a lot of what happens here. And that's, because it's its own story. But the moment's not lost. I mean, this was a pretty huge moment in the movie itself, especially back in '83 when it came out. And then of course the very last scene of it, but yeah, we're going to end the show there. Josh, thanks for bringing this topic over to us. Thank you for being a supporter as long as you have. I think you're like one of the oldest, believe it or not, supporters. And I mean that in age, not in, no, I'm kidding. No, yeah, you are. You're like one of the oldest supporters that we've got right now. So even though you are part of the network, and yeah, you can always come on the show whenever you want. You've been on the show before. Yeah, we felt it was important to acknowledge the fact that you've been supporting the show long before you were associated with the network or even had your own show. So thanks for coming on here, and thanks for being a supporter of Cantina Cast.
Thanks for having me. I wouldn't support it if I didn't really love it and enjoy it. And no, it's been great. You guys are doing a great job, so keep it up. Really happy with it.
Right. Yeah. So folks, go check out the Film Appraisers. You can find them at eargluemedia.com/TFA or Film Appraisers. We have a bunch of different things out there. You can get all of their back catalog with Josh and our good friend Joe as well. They do a fantastic job. If you want to let folks know a little bit about what the Film Appraisers is about, Josh.
What do you got going on next?
So we actually recorded one today. I won't say what it is, but 1962, Frank Sinatra. It's kind of out of our wheelhouse. We have not done one like this before.
All right.
So we get a lot of good feedback when we step out of our comfort zone. So we're probably going to keep doing that. Film Appraisers, we take a look at a film, have a guest or a listener bring it on, and we just look at it in different categories. We try not to say it's good or it's bad. We try not to do thumbs up, thumbs down, or 1 to 5 stars in multiple categories, and just try to see how much is it worth in each of these categories. And we do sling dollars. Fake money is always fun. It's just really interesting to see some of the films that we have enjoyed over the years and where they actually stand, and some that we would never have expected that actually show well. Dead Poets Society showed well. Almost Famous, surprisingly, showed really high. Just little films like that make the show really fun. So yeah,
which are both great films. But interesting that when you take it from that perspective, and certainly at that angle, right, or I guess that depth, it is interesting to see which films pop up. I guess
quick Space Camp.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what's going on there, but
is Leah Thompson's in that, right?
Oh yeah,
that's so we know.
So was Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, very young Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, and a lot of Star Wars quotes. So I was all over that movie as a young budding 13-year-old or 12-year-old when it came out. So. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode from a certain point of view. We do have more guests lined up. We're working on one right now, and we're going to continue the show throughout the rest of the year, honestly. So we'll keep bringing folks back on as long as you guys will let us do so. So For Jonesy, Josh, and everybody here at the Cantina Cast, thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next time.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.